everyone, I'm Elmari. With me today I have Palesa and Alicia, and we are going to discuss a very controversial topic. We are talking about abortions. So Palesa, please kick us off, explain to us how does it work? Can anyone get an abortion? What's the process? What's the legal position? Please, the floor is yours.
All right, hi everyone. All right, abortions in South Africa are legal and they are regulated by the Act, the Choice on Termination of Pregnancy, which was enacted in 1996 already. So the
Okay.
legal position in South Africa has been consistent in that abortions are legal. All right. So the Act provides with conditions wherein which a woman can terminate a pregnancy in South Africa, the place, offenses, and penalties. I'm just going to take you through some important provisions
Yeah.
in the Act. So, firstly, the conditions wherein which a woman may terminate a pregnancy in South Africa. The first one, during her first 12 weeks, the gestation
So that's the first 3 months,
the first
the
3
first
months,
trimester.
first trimester. There, a woman may terminate without any reason, without any justification whatsoever. There, you can terminate, right?
Okay.
So the second condition is that a woman may terminate from 13 weeks to 20 weeks. Now, that is, we are looking between 4 months of the
Okay.
woman's pregnancy. However, there's a kind of a trick. The Act provides that there should be consultation, the medical practitioner, and a registered midwife. All right. And they should be of the opinion that the continued pregnancy may pose a risk to the mental or physical health of the woman. Secondly, if the pregnancy was a result of rape or incest. Thirdly, if the continued pregnancy would severely tamper with the economic and social circumstances of the pregnant woman. If those opinions are there, then the woman may proceed with the termination. Then the last condition, a woman may terminate from 20 weeks upwards. That is in your 5 months, in your 5 months of pregnancy.
Yeah.
However, the same procedure with the second condition. There should be consultation, and the medical practitioner or the registered midwife should be of the opinion that the continued pregnancy may pose a risk to the fetus itself or cause severe abnormalities to the
and the risk to the mom. That's also something that they will consider.
That is also something they can also consider. Yes. So those are the conditions in which a woman may legally terminate their pregnancy in South Africa.
So it's legal. You can go within the first trimester. You can merely just go to a clinic, or where do they go to the doctor?
It is it's clinics. Usually it's clinics, and there are state facilities, right?
Oh, okay.
We also have private abortion clinics, and we have many here in Rustenburg. So the Act also requires that it should be done in state facilities. The reason for that is to ensure that there is proper regulation of Section 2, being the conditions that you terminate. In terms of the conditions.
I also assume, some of these, I want to call them the backyard or, the backstreet doctors. I think that's for your own health. That they also require that you actually rather go to a clinic.
So when you say that you can get it at a state facility, that means that it is possible to get an abortion for free in South Africa, or do you have to pay for it?
For the state facilities, I would think of the clinic. The clinic, the services are free there, so you would get it for free. As I mentioned, that there are private clinics. There, obviously, you would pay a fee.
But that's then your preference to go there.
Your preference to go there.
Okay, so we know it's legal. You can go there within the first trimester at any time, whenever you like.
Definitely.
After the first trimester, you have to consult first, but it's still legal, and there's still a big possibility that they will allow you to get it and to terminate. And then we know that it's free of charge if you make use of a state facility, and if you want to go to a private clinic, that's also an option available to you.
I think it's good to see an act, because after what recently happened in America, you had a lot of people making very polarizing comments. So they would use extreme language in order to kind of, create an emotional response when it came to abortion. And one of the things I heard a lot of people say was, well, does that mean that at 9 months, a woman should just get an abortion? But that's not really, in South Africa, at least, what we're saying. We do recognize that as the the fetus progresses and the
Mhm.
pregnancy goes on, it does get, I want to say, more difficult
Exactly.
to get an abortion. You can't just, at 7 months or
You need
whatever
reasons.
yeah,
And
you need to
you
kind of
have to
justify why you need an abortion,
Mhm.
essentially. Yeah.
Okay, but Alicia, you now touched on it, but maybe you can just give some clarity. What is the position in the US? Because we know, news platforms and everything was like an uproar about the position. But what happened, and how does it compare to our position in South Africa?
So currently, the position is quite different after what happened. So there was a case in 1973 in
Way
the
back.
US. Yes, it's a very famous case, at least there, and then a lot of people should know due to what recently happened. But it was known as the Roe v. Wade case. So that was essentially the case where the court said it should be a constitutional right of a woman to be able to get an abortion. So obviously America functions a bit different to us. We have national legislation. So, whatever is legal in Gauteng is legal in KwaZulu-Natal. It's all the same laws. In the US, it can sometimes work a bit differently. So prior to 1973, abortions were controlled by state legislation. So each state could decide whether abortions were legal or not. And prior to that case law, 30 of their states actually completely delegalized abortion, if I can say it like that. You could not get an abortion in 30 of the states under any
not an
circumstances. It just
even
not
if it's unhealthy to the
even
mom,
if the wife's the woman's life was at risk, she could not get an abortion. So then Roe v. Wade came along, and interestingly enough, it was actually a woman who challenged it. I believe it was her third pregnancy. So she already had 2 kids. She fell pregnant for a third time, just decided, it's not feasible for her to continue with the pregnancy, wanted to get an abortion. She was in Texas, I believe, being one of the states in which she would not be permitted to get an abortion. And she decided to challenge it. And they actually found, which is quite different to what happened in South Africa, they then found that abortions is closely linked to the woman's right to privacy. And they said because she has a constitutional right to privacy, she should have the right to abortion. Whereas in South Africa, we more commonly associate abortions with the right to bodily integrity. So you have a right in South Africa to decide what to do with your body, which includes reproduction rights and so forth. They then said it's a constitutional right, and then essentially the states could no longer decide whether to allow abortions or not. However, they did still link it with the feasibility or the viability of the fetus. So, it was like up to 12 weeks, very similar actually to what South Africa says now. Then, unfortunately, in my opinion, recently there was a case known as Dobbs, and they overturned Roe v. Wade, which means it is no longer a constitutional right in America to get an abortion.
Depends on each state again.
Yes, each state is now entitled to make their own rules, and in many states, getting an abortion is actually a crime. So you can be, there's in some states it's subject to imprisonment, in some states it's subject to a fine. It's treated very seriously in the more conservative states. But it isn't just, like right across the country that way. There are some states that still allow it, some states allow it subject to different restrictions, and so it goes. But unfortunately, it is no longer a right that you can rely on.
And Alicia, tell me, if I live in one state where it is not legal, and can I then go to a different state to just get an abortion there, or will that still be illegal?
Essentially happened, a lot of the more conservative states had what they call trigger laws. So these trigger laws meant that as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, a trigger was pulled and this abortion legislation came into effect. And in some of these states, they have tried to make it against the law to go to another state and get an abortion, and then said that if you return, they will try and prosecute you. However, many of the states in which it was legalized have now said they won't assist in the prosecution of these women. So it's a very contentious issue in America at the moment. And I know recently it came up again because there are a lot of women where the fetus was, I want to say, it passed away. It was
stillbirth.
and but they wouldn't proceed with removing the fetus.
So she still had to carry.
So she had to carry the fetus for 2 weeks to go through various ultrasounds to confirm that the fetus had passed away. And it's a constant uproar in America. You'll hear of minors, being sexually assaulted and falling pregnant and not being permitted to have abortions, or instances like these women. Because I think a lot of people think of abortion and think the woman just sits at home and goes, you know what,
I don't want to have a
baby. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it is just absolutely beyond your control. So what was interesting for me about America as well, on the topic of minors, even when abortions were legal in America across the board, a minor had to have parental consent, which is, I understand it, is not the case.
What's the position?
The position in South Africa is that a minor, a pregnant minor, can consent to having the pregnancy terminated.
So the parents,
without the consent of the parents. What is advised is that the minor must at least consult with their parents and just inform them of their decision of terminating. However, the Act says if the minor chooses not to consult, that should not be a reason to deny them the termination.
She can still proceed.
In essence, minors in South Africa can consent.
So that's different from the position then.
Yeah.
But when we talk about bodily integrity and all this controversy about this whole abortions and everything, we also think we know some of the arguments are, but what about the right of the life of the fetus and the baby? And other people argue, what about the bodily integrity of the mom? And then US, obviously, they argued, what about my privacy and my decision? So where are we at when we look at bodily integrity and when we look at comparing that to the right of the life of a fetus? What right does a fetus have?
I think what's important is that what people sometimes don't know, in South Africa, abortion has had a lot of consideration. We have the legislation, and this legislation has been challenged before, and that is an argument that people love to bring up. What about the right to life? And my understanding is that a fetus, although recognized as being valuable and important, is not recognized as being a life for purposes of our constitution.
In the eyes of the law, a fetus is not a person.
Yes. Because that's the thing as well that I felt, because I quite closely followed what was happening in America, just because it was very interesting to hear how people would speak, especially men would speak about abortions and things. And they would sometimes misconstrue the idea of whether we are recognizing the fetus as a human and whether we are recognizing that a fetus is precious and valuable, and that's not really what it's about. And obviously religious considerations would come in. And in South Africa, the position is very clear. We don't mix religion and law. We are very objective about it, so you can have your personal opinions and you can exercise those personal opinions in whichever manner you would like, but the law is the law, and we will give everyone the right to make those decisions.
And just adding on the constitutionality, the Act has been previously challenged, and the word everyone was actually challenged to mean that it includes a fetus, and the court went on to say no, it does not include a fetus. The word everyone does not include a fetus.
That would everyone have the right to life?
Everyone has the right to life.
And that was then challenged by saying, but that word everyone does not include a fetus. So it's established. That argument's actually answered already, although we might not necessarily like the answer, but that's when we keep our feelings separate from what the law says, basically.
And I think that's what keeps our law, our constitution, or our position rather, consistent.
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
What was when I was looking at America and things and why they based, because it was interesting to me that they based the constitutionality of abortion on the right to privacy. I don't know why, but it was a bit of a weird stretch for me legally.
Mhm.
But I think what we must remember is America has quite an old constitution and a very, very short constitution. When I looked it up, I believe America's constitution is around 4,000 words. In comparison, South Africa's constitution is 38,000 words. If there's one thing that's come out of South Africa's history and what happened is actually an excellently drafted constitution. And we get a lot of liberties because of how well our constitution is drafted. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, with all the ups and downs of being in South Africa and, you know, load shedding and all of that, at least we don't have these types of struggles anymore.
And one thing I really appreciate about the act is that it takes cognizance of the woman's social and economic circumstances. That can also be a reason for a woman to terminate.
And just also because that's something, as I said, men are quite opinionated on the subject. You don't require your partner's consent or the father's consent in any respect.
No.
So they don't even necessarily have to have knowledge of the pregnancy or the abortion. They don't need to be involved in that decision in South Africa.
I would say the decision to terminate pregnancy, maybe they should know, but the decision to terminate is solely rested upon the woman herself. And I think that also stems from the fact that we have the right to bodily integrity. It's our body, therefore also the right to reproduction, but also the decision with what transpires or happens to our bodies. It lies with the woman herself.
And I think maybe another thing that I found interesting about abortions is how abortion legality and abortion statistics correlate with one another. And there's quite a lot of research to show that the legalization of abortions actually decreases the abortion rate. Because I know, again, we're speaking about America, but a lot of people should have seen these videos probably. You have Planned Parenthood, and then you'll see those people outside Planned Parenthood and they're picketing and it's riots and they kind of, I want to say, assault the people that go in there. And a lot of those people have said, but you must remember Planned Parenthood and a lot of abortion clinics in South Africa aren't solely focused on abortions. They provide a lot of other services and a lot of contraceptive services as well. So these clinics, you must remember, you can go to them for those purposes as well. And I think that's why there tends to be a correlation between the two. Because with abortion comes greater education about sexual reproduction and contraception and so forth.
But there's another question I just want to ask whilst we are talking about statistics. Are you obliged to like give all your personal information when you go to these clinics? Isn't that maybe one of the reasons why people prefer to go to one of the backstreet clinics, because they don't want people to know?
Well, definitely not. In the act provides that there should be record. But when I read that section, I'm of the view that it's for purposes of statistics, because the kind of information required for these records is the number of termination that took place in that state facility and all that. It's not per se the personal details of
where
the
you
woman,
live,
where
how
you
old
live,
you are.
how old you are.
Okay.
So records must be taken, but it is for statistic purposes, but it's not the personal information of the woman. So they should not
be afraid to go to a
clinic
because maybe having to give information.
Definitely so.
No, very interesting. So we know it's legal. We know that option is available. Very interesting position in the US currently. And I think that's it then for today. I don't know if there's something else one of you would like to add.
The only thing maybe I think we should also put in is the downfall in South Africa. The statistic with regards to the use of backstreet services
is it very high?
Very high.
But that's concerning.
It is. It is very, very hard.
So we should actually maybe, I want to say, encourage people to actually
Exactly.
go to qualified doctors, go to
Indeed.
qualified institutions, where it's clean, and I think most important, where you are well taken care of.
Exactly.
Mm.
Because the act also says there should be counseling for these women.
Yeah, definitely.
There should be counseling, and at these state facilities, they provide all of that. And I know there's also scrubbing, there should be scrubbing. And with these backstreet facilities or services,
the aftercare is also most probably not
Exactly.
there. I mean, you walk out on the same day. And
But I think sometimes there, what I'm concerned about is that you just don't know. You don't know that, firstly, maybe that you can get an abortion, which you can.
Yes.
You don't know where to get an abortion.
Yeah.
And maybe especially if you're quite young, because I think for people, to my mind at least, I don't think there's any woman that goes through an abortion and doesn't find it very difficult.
Yes.
No matter why you have to get the
Yes,
abortion,
yes,
if it is because something's wrong with the fetus, with yourself, you just cannot afford it. I think it's a very, very difficult decision to make. So I think that's kind of part of the reason why we wanted to have this discussion, is to tell people it is available, it is for free, you can go to state facilities. And I don't think people should be concerned that these facilities aren't up to par. As far as I understand, they are clean and, at the very least, better than what's happening.
Yes. No, it is.
Definitely.
Most definitely.
Definitely.
No, that's true. Well, thank you guys for joining. Please leave comments if you want us to discuss some topics, or if you have interesting questions, and like and subscribe. Thank you.